When I was liberated, I only weighed about 70 pounds. There's only 3 of us that survived.
Your heart just goes, oh.
It took 60 years for us to build a memorial to these guys.
They never got the welcome home that they deserved.
He has cancer. He kept saying, I'm going to be strong enough to make it to the World War II Memorial.
We fly World War II veterans to see their memorial at no cost to them.
I'm Bob Dole and my wife Elizabeth. We come out here a lot. We've got to let everybody know the sacrifices made by that generation.
You never forget it. You never forget it.
The ones that didn't come back are the heroes.
That's one day in their life they'll never forget. That's what it's all about.
Met Ed, I never knew he was alive.
We will never, ever forget.
Hi, I'm Scott Howe. Welcome to Studio 5. That is the trailer for a movie that is called Honor Flight. It's a documentary about bringing World War II veterans here to Washington, D.C. to visit their memorial before it's too late. And I'm very pleased to introduce our guest today, Mr. Dan Hayes. He's the director of Honor Flight. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And our 2 panelists for today, the man in uniform to my right is Navy Petty Officer Kevin O'Brien. He's from TPC News. And Mr. Terry Turner. He's the Pentagon Channel's social media producer. Thanks to both of you for being here with us today.
Glad to be here, Scott.
Dan, anyone who hasn't seen this yet is in for a thrill and better be ready to have their Kleenex. That's been said about many films, but I'm telling you, this will bring a tear to your eye, absolutely, whoever you are. Tell us how you got involved in the project.
Yeah, well, so first of all, you know, the Honor Flight organization is a national organization. There's hubs all across the country, about 120 different hubs, and they fly World War II veterans to see the memorial built in their honor. So a lot of these men and women haven't been able to make the trip. So how I got involved is I just went down to the World War II Memorial. I was a video producer here in DC, and my dad had told me, hey, these guys are coming out, and I just started doing some interviews. And throughout the course of the day, I just met one guy after another with these emotional stories. And I thought, man, this is pretty awesome. And I made a short video, about 5 minutes, and it got a lot of views on YouTube, and I decided to just kind of build this project out and do a lot more. So kind of started small and just built over time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, first off, for making this film. You know, being the son of a Navy veteran and a grandson of a Army veteran, you know, I appreciate this. Now, on a personal note, whenever I meet a celebrity, or let's say the President of the United States, I'm never starstruck. But whenever I meet a World War II veteran or a Korean War veteran or a war hero, I'm immediately starstruck. Did this happen to you? I mean, and how did you get these guys to open up and tell these stories?
Yeah, you know, it did. It's strange though. They're so humble. You know, you hear that about this generation. They're a humble group of men and women. They don't like to talk very much about it. But as soon as you kind of just pass that 5-minute mark in a conversation, you see something change. I had one guy, I think his name was Jeri. He's like, well, why are you interviewing me? I don't have anything, you know, noteworthy that happened to me or anything like that. And about 10 minutes later, I hadn't asked any additional questions, and he'd been just telling me these incredible stories. Well, then my ship blew up, and then I was with my buddy and all this stuff. So I think it's kind of developing a level of trust that they're willing to open up, and as soon as they do that, it's great. It's just awesome, and I admire every single one of them. Not only for what they did in the war, you know, in their service, but also what they did when they came home for their family, and they built this life and they built this country, you know, and they came back, and that was such an inspiration to me and my crew. You know, we're all under 30, just a young group, and just to see these men and women and meet them was an incredible privilege. So it was awesome.
You know, back when the memorial was being built, or the lead up to it, I did some stories as a reporter on it. And at the time, we were losing more veterans, World War II veterans, every day than we were losing during the war back in the 40s. We're running out of time for a lot of these guys now. How important is it for Honor Flight's mission to do what they're doing?
It's critical. In every video we made and every conversation we had, we talk about the urgency, because it is, I think now they estimate between 900 and 1,000 vets that pass away every day. So this is living history that we're losing. If we don't ask these questions now, it'll be too late. And so that sense of urgency was embedded in every interview and every product we made and every conversation that we had. And the Honor Flight Network, talks about it a lot. I think it's critical that we get these men and women out there. And as soon as we get all the World War II guys, we need to get the Vietnam guys, the Korean guys, men and women, both men and women, out to see their memorials. So time is moving. So.
Dan, let's take a look at another clip from the film. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is that's coming up?
Sure, yeah. So this is a clip that basically is the arrival. Our Honor Flight flies into Dulles Airport, and a lot of times there'll be a handful of people, sometimes a couple of dozen, who greet these men and women. And on a personal note, when this happened, when I first went on the trip to capture this Honor Flight experience, it was a simple thing, but I was standing at the top looking down this staircase, and I saw just a small group of people applauding and waving for these men and women. I just completely started to cry, because it was just it's just a simple gesture and a beautiful thing. And you'll see, I guess, the arrival at Dulles Airport here.
Okay, so let's take a look at it now.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was also in World War II, so he passed away 9 years ago, but it's really beautiful for my children to see the history and the men that fought for our country.
These guys now have become known as the greatest generation. I guess Tom Brokaw sort of coined that with the book that he wrote. And I think some people might look at that term not quite correctly. I think they put the emphasis on greatest instead of the generation. I'll give that a little bit of context. Our last few wars the United States has been involved in: Korea, 1.7 million service members involved in Korea. Vietnam, 2.7 million. In Afghanistan and Iraq, 2.5 million. In World War II, 16 million American service members involved in that conflict. And now we're down to about 2 million that are left living. How do folks get into this program and possibly get their name chosen to be on one of these honor flights?
Yeah, so first, you can basically go to honorflight.org, which is the National Hub's website, and you can look in your area, in your state, for the local hub and just sign up. They have phone number, mail, address, and you can basically just sign up that way. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You find the local hub and send them a note. But to your first point about how many people were involved, that's something that I didn't really process, I knew some of the history, but as I learned more, it's like this was a country-wide effort. Almost every person from the smallest town to the biggest town, this was fully a country-wide effort. And I think there was a time then post-war that we saw our country unify in a way that we haven't seen since. And frankly, I think that's one of the appeals of the film, is with all the bipartisan, all the bickering and all the stuff that happens, for people to come around a cause and see this film, it really is resonating with people, and they want that same sense of togetherness that we had during that war. And I think that's one thing that's been very impactful about our movie so far.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of, again, what the phrase means. It's not necessarily that they're the greatest Americans ever, but as an entire generation, they went to war for this country. And so as an entire generation, as that entire team at once going overseas, some to Europe, some to the Pacific, that makes them the greatest American generation.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much. We're here talking about the film Honor Flight. It's a great documentary. We'll have more Studio 5 right after this. Welcome back to Studio 5. We're getting the story behind Honor Flight, a film chronicling the ongoing mission to fly thousands of World War II veterans to Washington, D.C., so that they can see the World War II memorial personally. We've been talking to the movie's director, Dan Hayes. Dan, thanks again for being here. There are 4 fellows in particular that you follow throughout this film. Tell us a little bit about them.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We follow 4 really amazing men who have been an inspiration to me, just getting to know them. One of them's name is Harvey Kurz, and Harvey is actually a grocery store bagger in Port Washington, Wisconsin, and it's hilarious. He basically is bagging groceries, interacting with people, very outgoing guy, but he served on Iwo Jima, and he saw a lot of, horrible stuff in his service there, and this movie for Harvey has been amazing to see the reaction. He's become a celebrity. He's on local news all the time. All the people in the community know him. So it's been a really good opportunity for Harvey to kind of get to know this. The other guy who a lot of viewers may actually recognize is a guy by the name of Joe Demler. His nickname is actually the Human Skeleton. He was captured in 1945. He was a POW, and he almost starved to death. He was about 75 pounds. Upon his liberation from a Nazi prison camp. And he's famously pictured in Life magazine as the Human Skeleton. And he coined a phrase, every day is a bonus, after that. And it really has become the theme for this Milwaukee chapter of Honor Flight that we followed in the film. But Joe is just an incredible and inspirational guy, so it was awesome to get to know these guys.
You go down to the memorial, you look at the clips that we've just seen here, and you see this smile on their faces. These are guys who are always portrayed as being stoic. They came back, put their duffel bags away, like it said in the trailer. But you go out to the World War II memorial, and these guys are rock stars. What's it like for them, and what's it like for the Honor Flight volunteers who are out there with them?
Sometimes I think it's more emotionally impactful for the volunteers actually than the guys, just to see them and have this experience. There's actually different reactions. Some of them, when they go to that wall of stars, are a little more the wall of stars that represents all the people who passed away during the war. They're a little bit reflective. They kind of go internal. A lot of them, kind of warm up throughout the day. So in the morning, they're like, I don't need all this attention, kind of stay away from me, But then by the afternoon, they are like little kids. They're running circles around the volunteer escorts that are with them, and they are just, you can see it on their face. You can see it in their eyes. It really is the last special trip that they're ever going to get in their life. So by the afternoon, they're just soaking it all up and really having an awesome time. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you went into making this film, before you met with these people, did you have expectations in your mind, like how you wanted to tell the story? And were you surprised by how the story told itself? Because it seems to pretty much tell itself, and how these characters really, describe what happened to them, and their moments are just, breathtaking. Did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed them?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Going into it, and I like to say, I've tried to capture this to the best of my ability. Going into it, I thought of the arc of going on the trip. You wake up in the morning and you go on the trip. What I didn't know we were going to do when I started out was all this stuff about the community coming together to support the group. So it takes a lot of money and resources and logistics and everything else to coordinate this. So this is a whole community must come together in order to make the trip possible. So that component of it, I didn't really know that much about before I went into it. And as I learned more about all the people who've stepped up, from your local brownie troop to, the leadership of the organization, to kids' uncles and, aunts and everybody, teachers, schools, it was just like, man, this takes a real community to put this together. And that was a surprise, but also really refreshing to see how this Wisconsin community in particular came together to make this happen.
Dan, in this next clip, we're going to see where your 4 stars of this film see their World War II memorial for the first time. Tell us what that was like for you.
It was pretty awesome. It was cool to see, because I met a lot of them beforehand and kind of gotten their World War II stories, and I didn't know how they were going to all react. And Julian in particular, one of the vets that we profiled, he was just in awe. He'd never seen anything like this, and a lot of these men hadn't traveled to D.C. at all. A lot of them hadn't ever been on a plane. Harvey, who was at Iwo Jima, had never been on a plane before. So the honor flight trip at age 87 was his first trip on a plane. So he shows up to this memorial, and these guys are from, small part of Wisconsin, and they'd never seen a huge memorial like this. So to see it, and Julian in particular was fascinated by the architecture and how it was put together and what it all meant. So it was a thrill for us to see. So yeah, we can take a look at the clip of when they first arrive.
Here we go. Once again, another clip from Honor Flight.
It was built to last a long time.
I think it's an honor that's long overdue for the veterans. I don't think any veterans get enough credit, and these guys are absolute heroes, and it makes me really proud to be there and share this with my grandpa.
We just came out to surprise our dad on this very, very special day. They did a lot more for us as World War II veterans than we can ever say, so we thought we could take a day, say thanks.
I can't tell you what it means to me. I don't know which is more important, the monument or my family. It's spectacular.
I was very lucky being a POW in Germany. I'm very fortunate that I made it. Live every day to the fullest. Yeah, you never know.
We read about all of this in history books, but until somebody sits there and talks to you, it becomes a reality. And it's just so powerful to know that there's just human beings that did this for us and came back and continued to make this country be what it is today.
Hey, it's always good to meet an Army nurse.
Oh, well, thank you. Even though you were in the Navy.
Yeah, I was in the Navy.
There's a difference between a tourist and being here with the veterans. It's a different feeling. It's like you're one of the bunch.
Everyone just stand to your side. 2 more times, right here.
What a bunch of characters they must be.
They really are. Yeah, it's awesome.
I can only imagine the things that took place off camera.
Oh yeah, you can't. It's awesome. They've become my best friends, man. They're awesome.
So it's got to be an incredible logistical feat, not unlike one of the landings at Normandy or Iwo Jima. What does it take to get these guys all onto that plane?
It is pretty wild. I had no idea. Steve Deutsch, who appears in the film, is the logistics coordinator. And he's got a spreadsheet. I mean, you got to imagine we need to know everybody's medication. We need to have a backup person, name tags for everybody in case somebody gets lost or separated from the group. You got wheelchairs. You got a bus, a police escort, which is actually really cool. The guys love that.
Yeah.
We're cutting through DC traffic,
Right.
you know, in the middle of a construction zone, flying through like the president. But to coordinate that takes tons of man hours and tons of people. There's no way to do this just a little bit. It's really impressive, and tons of work that's gone into doing it.
So many things you would have never even thought of, I'm
Right.
sure.
Right.
Up next, we're going to talk about how you can help make this mission possible for others, plus where you can see the movie Honor Flight. That's all coming up here on Studio 5. Hi, we're back with Honor Flight Director Dan Hayes, who's been sharing the stories that shaped this documentary about the Honor Flight Network. That's a volunteer organization that flies thousands of World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. to see their World War II memorial. Dan, I want to play a part of an interview that took place with a 4-year veteran from the National Park Service. So here this is.
What's really also cool is Saturdays, like from spring to fall, is we have the honor flights coming through from World War II. They come in from all over the country, and they're escorts. Sometimes they're military escorts, sometimes they're just people volunteering. They bring them over, and it's veterans honoring veterans. And that's very moving. Some of these guys are 90, 91. We had a guy last week, 92, still in his uniform. The sad part is some of them are coming over to see their sons on the wall. That's especially moving. But the fact that they come over and they honor and they can understand those names on the wall, that's really one of my favorite things, is to see the honor flights.
It must be really special for you to have been able to do this film project that I expect in and of itself as a film has done a lot to further this greater good of getting all these World War II veterans here.
Yeah, we think that we're, helping out the Honor Flight Network quite a lot. Honor Flight Network, as I said before, was started by Earl Morris in Ohio soon after the memorial was built. He's an amazing guy, started just flying like 4 or 5 veterans when he first started, and now this has grown into this national organization, 120 hubs. I think they've flown over 100,000 men and women at this point, so they've really had a tremendous impact.
So Honor Flight is in the Guinness Book of World Records. Can you tell us about that experience and how you pulled it off?
I can. It's pretty wild. So Joe Dean, the head of Stars and Stripes Honor Flight, which is the Wisconsin hub we followed, is a big thinker. He always wants to go big or go home. And when we were editing the film, I got a call from Renee, who is the PR director for Honor Flight. She said, we were thinking about maybe doing a small theater in Milwaukee, something like that, nice little premiere, 300 seats, whatever. And she said, hey, Dan, how about Miller Park, the Milwaukee Brewers baseball stadium? And I was like, Renee, really? Like, is this a real thing? And she's like, yeah, and guess what? It'd give you an extra 2 minutes to get the film, or 2 months to get the film done. And then I said, sold. Let's do it. So then they just did a lot of, we invited all the veterans who'd gone on the trip and their families, because, the families only saw just one part of it, maybe the homecoming experience, but they didn't have a sense for the whole day. So we packed, Miller Park with about 30,000 people. And it was crazy. I mean, people sat in complete silence during, imagine being in a stadium. Normally people are talking and drinking, all the rest. Complete silence watching this film, 30,000 people. And the veterans themselves that went on the trip, that participated in the trip, were honored in many, many ways. And we had a flyover of World War II planes, we had World War II reenactors, we had music from the period. So it was an incredible event, and watching it there, something that our team put together, watching it up on that screen was something I'm never, ever going to forget.
And so that was a world record for the greatest number of people to see a premiere.
Yeah, the Guinness World Record for largest film screening in history.
It's very important that we point out that Honor Flight is a part of the combined federal campaign. So when that comes around, whether you're here stateside or overseas, your combined federal campaign, you can look up the Honor Flight organization and find their number there to contribute. You can also take part in this as being what's called a guardian. Tell me what that's about.
Yeah, so most of the honor flights now, because of the age of the veterans, offer a volunteer experience where you pay, in Wisconsin, you pay about $500 for the privilege of escorting a veteran out to the memorial, so you're with them all day, making sure they're safe, no slips or trips or anything like that. And I think for those guardians, it's often more impactful, like I said before, than even for the veterans, just to see and experience that trip, so it's really awesome.
I know that a lot of people have called the folks who've served in Afghanistan and Iraq for the past 12 years or so the new or the next greatest generation. We saw in that soundbite a little bit earlier how so many of these World War II veterans were coming to the Vietnam Wall to see their sons' names carved there. Has this experience shown you a common thread that has tied generations together from the greatest generation up to today in their loss and their sacrifice in the service of their country?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest treats, of the day in the honor flight experience is for these older veterans to go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and they see these men perform an incredibly precise, military ceremony, and you see this row of men men and women in wheelchairs watching this. And I think there is a connection. You know, I've seen also young Marines interact with people at the Iwo Jima Memorial, and they kind of have this knowing look, you know, between them. Like, I know what you experienced. Obviously, it's very different nowadays, but just the service of their country and what they've done, I definitely think that they identify with each other in a powerful way. And we captured a little bit of that. You saw in some of those clips, the younger servicemen honoring their grandpa, so it was pretty powerful to see.
Well, once again, let's tell folks how they can get involved in this if they'd like to. If you'd like to contribute something through the combined federal campaign, honorflight.org. You can find out more information about the organization there. If you want to find out more about the film itself, which Dan directed, you can go to honorflightthemovie.com. Dan Hayes is the director of a great documentary called Honor Flight, bringing World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. for them to see their memorial before they leave this earth. Dan, thanks very much for being with us here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to talk about it.
That's it for Studio 5. We hope you'll join us again next time. So long.